Arizona State has a lot of question marks at the tight end spot, but that doesn't mean that there can't be some standouts.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast. And stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. These days, every potential new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into another edition of the podcast. We are going to be continuing our series with the position breakdown. Today, we are looking at tight end, and this is a really interesting position. The Sun Devils have nothing back from last year. I shouldn't say nothing. Coleson Arends is back. We'll talk about him a little bit, but for the most part, this is a brand new position from the starters to the depth. Out is Jalin Conyers, who decided to transfer with 1 year of eligibility left and go to Texas Tech. You had Messiah Swinson run out of eligibility, and Bryce Pierre transferred during spring ball. That's your top three tight ends from last year that are gone. Now you are looking at a room that has really been remade through the transfer portal. And, stop me if you've heard that before. But that's pretty much the way that your tight end group looks right now, is you've got three new faces through the portal. One of them very recent, who we'll talk about in a little more detail compared to the other guys, because I do think that this player is probably your starter. You've got Coleson Arends as a redshirt freshman, and you've got incoming four-star recruit Jayden Fortier. We'll start our conversation, kind of with what do we even expect out of this unit? I don't know that there's any expectations you can put on them, and that's not a bad thing. When I say that, I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say, hey, brand new group with a lack of established chemistry with the offense and with the scheme and with the quarterbacks and whatever. We want you to come out and get 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns as a unit. I don't know if that's fair. Is it realistic? Sure, it could be. There's talented players here, but I don't think that that's fair to come out and have that kind of expectation for this group. It is brand new. I mean, it's fresh off the lot. And there are some exciting players for sure. There's Chamon Metayer coming from Cincinnati. He's someone that really has my attention. Jayden Fortier, the aforementioned four-star freshman. I'm really excited about him. Markeston Douglas is really interesting. There's definitely players here that have my attention. It's just that we don't know anything about them as Arizona State Sun Devils. And even the guys that are transferring in don't have a ton of playing time. Markeston Douglas has 25 catches over his first two seasons at Florida State. Cameron Harpole had 7 catches transferring in. Chamon Metayer has the most playing time. Last year, he caught 23 passes for 258 yards and 5 touchdowns. He is the one that I'm alluding to as probably your starting tight end. We'll talk more a little bit later, like we have done with my depth chart breakdown, but this is a group that not only is brand new to Arizona State, but a lot of these guys just don't have a ton of playing time, period. A lot of these guys are coming from reserve roles or roles where they were very niche. Like Markeston Douglas is a very, very big man at 6'4", 285 pounds. I mean, I've said before, I would love him out there for heavy sets for power runs and stuff like that, and just see this big dude mauling guys over, because he's 20 to 30 pounds away from being able to be a full-time offensive lineman. And he's got really good receiving skills. Like, he is a much better receiver than you would expect for a guy who's 285 pounds. We'll talk about that more. There's intrigue in this room. It's just very unproven. And that's really where all of these questions will stem for this unit. It would be one thing, right, if you brought in like two guys that were full-time starters at other programs, and then you had Fortier with them, or Bryce Pierre had still stayed. We wouldn't have as many questions. But you really have one starter, and I don't even know how many games Chamon Metayer even started for Cincinnati, and a lot of depth role play guys, or guys who just haven't been able to get on the field. It's an interesting group. The one thing that I do know, however, is that tight ends coach Jason Mohns clearly knows what he's doing. He's recruiting the position as good as we've ever seen. He's able to speak to these guys in a language that they understand, break everything down, and get good production out of them. Last year, Jalin Conyers played very well. When he was on the field, I know he didn't get in the end zone, but he still was a good football player. Bryce Pierre played very well. I thought that he at times was the best tight end on the team, and was really excited about him coming into this year. But, unfortunately, he did decide to transfer out. Jason Mohns will be able to get these guys going. I don't have questions from a coaching standpoint. My questions really come from a production standpoint, which can be a very overrated stat, because if you have these guys out there that are blocking really hard, or they are able to kind of open things up underneath, if they're catching a few passes a game and just converting first downs and everything, you take that. You don't need a guy to go for 500 yards. You don't need this unit to collect 500 yards. You just need them to play well enough to make sure that the offense continues to stay on schedule. So my questions are really just focused around production. Like, what is a fair number to ask? And I would love to hear your guys' input in the comments, or if you wanted to hit me up on Twitter, because I just don't know what fair expectations are. Is it 50 catches, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns from the group? Do you want one guy that's 300 to 500 yards? Do you want somebody that scores 5 to 8 touchdowns? Do you want the upside of some of these guys to make them one of the top 5, maybe top 4 targets on the team? Because also keep in mind, this is a really good receiving room, and you've got running backs that catch the football. That's another thing that you have to factor in here with the tight ends is, what does their target share even look like? This might be a year where ASU is just not overly committed to the tight end position as they try and get everything figured out. Or maybe they are, because Kenny Dillingham wants to run a pro-style offense. And in his pro-style offense, there's a lot of 2 tight end sets. It's just, it's so interesting for me, the amount of ways that you can go about this. And with so many unknowns, there's so many different outcomes. And I do think that this room, like I said, with Jason Mohns coaching them, I believe in these guys to be able to have success in 2024. I'm not worried about the group playing at a poor level. My questions just stem from production. What's it look like, and what is it fair to ask? And then another thing is how the depth chart is sorted out, and what roles are assigned to which players, how much rotation is there going to be, who's going to be their best blocker, their best receiver, their best joker tight end. Like, there's just so many different ways that this could shake out. We're going to take a look at the depth chart next, and then we're going to wrap up the conversation with the upside and the downside of this unit. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find qualified professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but may be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other job leading sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. You can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So they're constantly finding new ways to make the process easier, and even launched a feature that helps write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker than before. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. And I got to let you know about the Locked On 24/7 stream on YouTube, on Amazon Fire TV. It's free, and it's going to keep you up to date with all the biggest news in sports from pro to college, opinions, everything. It's the best. Maybe a little biased, but it's the best. Let's take a look at a depth chart. And this is really interesting. The way that I ended up going about it is I led with the veteran players more than the projected players. So we'll just read through. Chamon Metayer, tight end 1. Markeston Douglas, tight end 2. Cameron Harpole, tight end 3. Jayden Fortier, tight end 4. And Coleson Arends, tight end 5. We'll start at the top. Chamon Metayer. This is easily the most productive guy who's on the team. He's someone that they were really excited about too. He had committed to Arizona State during spring ball, and I remember there was some guys that were really, really excited about Metayer. Goodness gracious, about Metayer transferring to the program because they knew that with Bryce Pierre transferring out that there was going to be a hole that needed to be filled. His teammate, of course, I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm trying to find it. Justin Wadley, a defensive end for Arizona State, was really excited when they made the move. I remember he had talked about it and he said, "Yeah, that's my dude." Really excited to bring him in. I'm sure that Justin had probably sold him on the program a little bit. He is the most proven, if you will. He is the easy slot to be the starter. That doesn't mean he is the starter from day one or by the end of the season. But I do think right now you probably got to go with the most proven guy, someone who has shown some upside, and that would be Metayer. Tight end 2, I'm going Markeston Douglas. Douglas was actually someone I thought about making his tight end 1. He's just so fascinating. For a dude who's 6'4", 285 pounds, he's a lot faster than you think he would be. And obviously, that's a bull in a china shop. He's going to run you over, and he's not going to be polite about it. He's going to run you over as a receiver. His freshman year, 13.6 yards per reception. Last year, 12.4 yards per reception. That's a lot for a dude that's as big as he is. And you look at some of the highlights on him. and he catches the ball, and like this dude's just sprinting down the sidelines, and it's like he's leaving guys in a cloud of dust, and by the time they catch up to him, he's just so big and strong. What are you gonna do? You're gonna have to hope for a shoelace tackle, or maybe that he's around the sideline so you can push him out. He's not an easy guy to tackle, and he's a good blocker, and he's built to be a good blocker. I said it earlier in the podcast. I've said it on other podcasts. I'll say it again. I like the idea of those heavy set formations and lining him up inside and just running right behind him. Even better, do super heavy sets and have a sixth offensive lineman, Markeston Douglas, either at tight end or put him at fullback, and then have the Carlos Brooks or Cameron Scadaboo running the football. Like, that sounds like so much fun. And it's bully ball. What are you supposed to do when you've got guys that are just so big and strong and athletic, like Markeston Douglas on the field? This is a stud. This is a beast. I would not be upset if he was tight end one for the team. I am going with the guy who's got a little bit more experience. Tight end 3, Cameron Harpole. It's a lot of unknown for him. 7 catches, 69 yards for his entire career, 6'4", 250. I am rolling with him because he's been in college football a little bit longer than everybody else, but I can't speak to how talented he is. I can't speak to how proven he is. He just doesn't have a lot to take a look at right now. But again, I trust Jason Mohns to be bringing in guys that are talented and able to play at a high level. Cameron Harpole is one of those guys. Jayden Fortier at tight end 4. Now, if you've listened to this podcast before, you know how excited I am for Jayden Fortier. And I think that this is going to be the future of the position. I see Jayden Fortier as one of the more critical pieces of the offense for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, however long he ends up at the university. He's a beast. He's a stud. He's a two-way player. This is a 4-star / 3-star, depending on your outlet you looked at. Two-way player. He played safety. He played tight end, 6'5", 220. He's fast. He's quick from a field standpoint, not just from a track standpoint. He's got good ball skills. He's someone that you just find a spot for him on the field, let him do his thing. If he's able to stack some good practices and stack some good reps together, I think we're going to see him on the field a lot, and I would not be surprised if by the end of the year he is tight end 1. Something very important to remember, however, is he is recovering from an ACL surgery. So I don't know when he's going to be 100% good to go. He could be good to go by training camp, or he might be out for an extended period of time. That is also one of the biggest factors that I have for him being tight end 4 instead of tight end 1. The last guy I have, Coleson Arends. Arends, I could put him ahead of Fortier and not feel too bad about it as a redshirt freshman who's getting used to the program. I'm giving the edge to Fortier because he's the 4-star. But again, depending on that ACL stuff and how that plays out, who knows where it goes. Arends, I'm not sleeping on him at all. I'm excited to see how he continues to grow with the Sun Devils after redshirting last year, 6'4", 245. And of course, activate the Valley. He's a local kid. I think he was Chandler. I don't remember. I can have it right here in front of me if I look hard enough. Pinnacle. Played at Pinnacle. Fun fact. So that's the way that I see those 5 guys getting rolled out right now. Is I think Chamon Metayer's tight end 1, Markeston Douglas tight end 2, Cameron Harpole tight end 3, Jayden Fortier tight end 4, Coleson Arends tight end 5. You could shuffle those around. I wouldn't blame you anyway. You could put Jayden Fortier tight end 1 or tight end 5, and I would understand either way. But we're going to transition to the final part of the show where we're going to take a look at the upside and the downside of this unit. What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? And a little bit of everything else in between. We're going to hop to that right now. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to spend on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. One more time, wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you for tuning in as always and making us your first listen of the day. And shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Upside, downside, best case, worst case scenarios. I think this is pretty cut and dry. I'm not gonna give you a bunch of word salad, I think is the phrase. Like this is very, very black and white, in my opinion. The upside here is you end up having a really good unit that has a lot of fluidity, a lot of guys who can rotate in and out. I think best case scenario in the grand scheme of things is a collective effort. I think what you want to see is, like I said, an example like, hey, I want these guys to combine for 50 catches, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, whatever. I think that is your best case scenario, is having a good collective effort from these tight ends. Another aspect here that I believe would be really good for a best case scenario and the upside is having some red zone targets. You need those big guys, and you got a bunch of 6'4", 6'5" tight ends. You got guys who are playing at 240, 250, 285. You should, in theory, be able to have guys that you can just put the ball up to. I am one of those people that I just love big body targets. If you are 6'3", or taller, if you are 220 pounds or heavier, and you run routes, I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. Just put the ball up in their zip code, let them come down with those 50-50 balls. I want that my ball mentality. You have the tight ends that are going to be able to do that. Hopefully, they are able to do that. But again, in a best case scenario, in a high upside, you have some red zone targets. If I had to put a number, I think your best case scenario is between 7 to 8 touchdowns. I would love to see double digit, but I also just don't know if ASU is going to have 20 plus touchdown passes this year, because I do think the run game is just going to be so good. But I just don't want to put a number on it. But I think by the end of the year, you'll be able to take a look and you'll say, as a collective unit, they played good. That's where you want to be. Last piece of the upside I want to talk about is Jayden Fortier. Now, the Fortier situation is really weird. Is he going to be ready to start the year? Are we just going to see him by the end of the year? Is this a redshirt? We don't really know necessarily how this is going to play out. But in a best case scenario, I think you see Fortier flashes. I think you see him become a big part of the offense. And it gives you the hope and the momentum heading into his sophomore year that you believe he can become a really good weapon for the team, a star on the offense. Maybe what Jalin Conyers was supposed to be, because Conyers was always a stud for ASU, but we were waiting for him to become a superstar. If he can show that he can get to where Jalin Conyers is, we can start doing the same thing and like having a hype train for him and saying, oh man, can you imagine if everything clicks for Jayden Fortier? We can get to that point, but we need to be able to see it this year. It wouldn't be a bad thing at all if he had the red shirt, though. It wouldn't be bad if he didn't get on the field as much. It's just a very weird situation at tight end for Arizona State. But in a best case scenario, I think there's 3 things. It's a collective success. It's red zone targets. It's Jayden Fortier looking promising. The downside, I think it's just one big all-encompassing downside and low point, and that's that this unit is a non-factor. That is a possibility, if for no other reason than, stop me if you've heard this before, it is a complete unknown. We have no idea what to expect at tight end. Are they going to be a really good unit? Are they going to be a unit that just has no direction with the amount of change? keep in mind some of it's out of the tight end's control too. They're going to be catching passes from a redshirt freshman quarterback who transferred to Arizona State over the offseason. They are working with a brand new offensive coordinator in Marcus Arroyo. A lot of these guys are transfers. There's not a lot of consistency on this team from last year to this year. In fact, there's basically none. The top 3 tight ends from your team last year are gone. Coleson Arends is back. That's the only guy who's been around the program. And again, it's a brand new offense from Marcus Arroyo. You got 3 tight ends with varied amounts of success and playing time. You've got a 4-star tight end recruit that is recovering from an ACL surgery. It is a mess. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that it's a mess, but we can call it as it is. It is concerning that you just don't know what's fair to ask, what's fair to expect. The collective amount of production, like I said, as the best case scenario is truly what you're looking for. Because I don't know that you can look at one guy. I don't think you can look at Markeston Douglas or Coleson Arends or Chamon Metayer. I don't think you can look at any of them and go, yeah, well, Metayer, you've had success at Cincinnati. You need to come out here and have success. You can't look at Douglas and go, well, you're such a big athletic freak. We want to see you turn into a beast. Can't look at Arends and go, look, you've been in the program for a year. Let's see you finally take off. You can't ask that of any of the guys, not Harpole, not Fortier, not Richie Bradshaw if he's a walk-on player for the team. It's just a unit that just doesn't have any clear answers. There is direction here. There is leadership here. As long as you have Jason Mohns back there developing these tight ends, I have faith. And as long as Kenny Dillingham is involved, and as long as Marcus Arroyo is involved, and everybody else is getting hands-on to get these guys developed, we'll be fine. But I truly don't think you can put an expectation on this unit. It's not a bad thing. It is just in fairness to them. I do not think you can give them an expectation. I think you have to give them a year to get comfortable with each other, and you have to be able to give them a year to really mesh, because these guys will all have at least one more year of eligibility past this year. So you could bring back this entire unit for next year with some guys having multiple years left. But in 2024, no expectation. It's go into it and whatever they give you, be happy about it. Even the downside of them being a non-factor, like, that's not the worst thing, because it's not unrealistic. We'll see. Again, some of the stuff isn't even in their control, because it is a good wide receiver group. It is a brand new quarterback room. It is a running back room that catches the football. They might not have to get the tight ends involved. They might be able to give all the tight ends a theoretical redshirt here. We'll see. It's a very weird situation. We will be glued to the training camp battle with tight end, because I don't know how tight end 1 through 5 is going to shake out, and I don't know how they're going to end up performing throughout the year. But I want to know what you guys think of the tight end position. Who's your favorite? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrats36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils, wherever you're getting your shows. Hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are going to be continuing this series again tomorrow as we transition to the offensive line. That's tackles, guards, and centers. We'll talk about it. We'll break it down, depth chart and all. I'll see you there. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On